Good day and welcome to the Travel With Us a While podcast, where we have conversations with people who travel by land, sea, air, and beyond. I'm very excited to introduce Ross Johnson to you, who has immigrated to Australia with his young family, and he shares in his Facebook page such fun and funny things that would help other people to decide Australia is a fabulous place to come and live, so why don't you try it? Without further ado, welcome and sit back, relax, and enjoy. And I'm very glad that you agreed to come on my podcast because I love to share travelers' stories from land, sea, air, and beyond, and especially love the idea that you've come all the way from the UK to live in Australia. So I'm really interested to know in a few things. Just one of them is what made you decide to come to Australia and how long have you been here? And from your gorgeous webpage, a Facebook page, I see that you're really having a great time and I love your tips you give people. It's terrific. So over to you.
Sure. My name's Ross. I have been living in Australia since 2020. And initially, I moved here partly because I love the Australian lifestyle and everything that the country has to offer. But the major deciding factor was how much they pay teachers here in comparison to the UK.
Wow. So what sort of thing do you teach?
I teach a bit of everything now. In the UK, I was primarily a secondary geography teacher. And since moving to Australia, I haven't really taught any geography. I started as an English teacher and I did that for about 5 years. And I've since moved roles. So rather than working in a sort of more traditional schooling setting, I'm now working in a special assistance school. So that's working mainly with students who aren't really engaged in mainstream schooling. And because of that, and I guess the demands that are placed on those types of students where they would have multiple different teachers, I am now responsible for kind of teaching them a lot of different things. So I still teach English, but I also teach a bit of maths, science, whatever the curriculum really requires.
Oh, that's fascinating. And so I've seen from your Facebook page that you travel a lot around Australia with your kids. How old are your children?
I have one that is 3 going on 13, and then I've got one that is 7, and I swear sometimes she treats me like my mum. She tries telling me off.
Sorry to laugh, but Golly, I can so relate to that. How lovely. And does your wife work or is she?
Yeah, no, she works as well. So in the UK, she originally trained as a beauty therapist. And I guess when she met me and she realized how much holidays teachers get, she decided to move over into a schooling setting. But she'd always had a passion to work with people who had disabilities. So she
Oh,
worked in a special school working with students who had disabilities. And when she moved here, she found that her qualification to work in a school didn't quite transfer over as easily as my degree did. She did a lot of kind of UK based training, which wasn't fully recognised here.
yes.
But the bit of her qualification that was recognised was her ability to work with people with disability. She did initially try and work as a beauty therapist, but then found that there was a reason why she left that industry in the first place. And then she moved over into that, and now she does disability support work.
That's fabulous. And I mean, that's terrific for the people you work with, both of you. I think it must be very rewarding for yourselves to change people's lives in that way. Fantastic.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So where do you go when you have your school holidays that coincide together?
Well, at the moment, we're kind of bound to staying in Australia. Because we've been here nearly 6 years, our permanent residency visa has now not overlapped, but with the permanent residency, after 5 years, until you've got your citizenship, if you want to leave the country, you need to get a resident return visa. So we've gone over that. And the Australian government is very clever. They price the resident return visa at pretty much the same cost as getting your citizenship. So for the last 18 months or so, because, we haven't got our citizenship very quickly, we have been stuck here. I love exploring Australia, really. I think my wife would probably love to go to Fiji for a bit. But here, we've mainly stuck to the East Coast because we live in Brisbane.
Oh,
So
I
we've
love
gone
Brisbane.
gone north and we've gone south. I've gone as far south in the car anyway as the Hunter Valley. We've
Yes.
already been to Sydney anyway previously, so we didn't feel like we needed to go that far. As far north, we've been up to Cairns and Cape Tribulation and the Reef and everything, but driving, because we have a caravan and we like to get our money's worth, before all the fuel prices went crazy,
Yes.
we got about as far as Rockhampton
Oh, wow.
because stupidly we did it in the summer and then we realised why you don't really go north in the summer.
Have you done the Atherton Tableland?
No, we haven't. We're actually going on a cruise later this year, and we're looking at as many kind of day trips around Cairns because it goes up there as we
Mhm.
can do, and it may be something. I think though we're going to try the Kuranda Railway if we can.
Oh, that you will love. It's fabulous. It's fabulous. That's terrific. And so when you're camping, are you fully self-contained or do you have to stay in caravan camping parks?
We are fully self-contained. We've got one of those hybrid caravans with everything on it. My wife and I did do a bit of camping in the UK. We'd gone the full, I guess, evolution you could call it, all the way from tents. We started here in tents and swags, but sometimes I feel a little bit outnumbered in my family because I'm the only guy and I'm full of girls. So they love their creature comforts. They love having a proper bed to sleep in and a shower and hot water, and obviously me just cooking for them. So if I'm going to have to cook for them, I'd rather something that isn't just a campfire kind of thing because it just takes too bloody long.
Love your honesty. That's fabulous. And do your children enjoy being outdoors and exploring?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the main reasons, other than teachers' pay, that we wanted to move to Australia. The UK weather doesn't really allow for much outdoor living unless you kind of want to brave the elements. And there'll be some people listening to this saying, "Hey, Ross, you're a bit of a sook. Why don't you just put on a coat?" Or what's that saying that people say?
Thermal underwear?
Yeah, there's no bad weather. It's bad preparation for the elements. Do you know what? I really love warm weather, and that's one of the main reasons I moved to Queensland. So yeah, no, I don't really want to go outside unless the weather is lovely. And the girls, they really thrive here, being able to spend so much time outside, and camping is just one part of that, I guess, wholesome experience that I wanted them to be able to grow up with. Just being outside rather than stuck indoors on a tablet looking at a screen, not really moving a lot. That's not what I wanted for my kids.
Absolutely. Oh, goodness. We have my partner and I are sailors or were sailors, and we lived on the pole moorings in the middle of Brisbane for 10 months before we
Oh,
traveled
wow.
overseas. Lived aboard for over 6.5 years going through the South Pacific Islands. But in Brisbane, it was wonderful because the pole moorings, they've now put a walkway across where the moorings were. And I used to walk to work through the botanical gardens every day. And I worked for 10 months and then we decided, okay, we'll go overseas now.
Yeah, it's not a bad commute to work, is it?
It isn't, and the thing that I love was you could just take a drive for an hour or so, and you were in different beautiful places so close to Brisbane City. It was lovely. Have you taken your kids into actually, like, South Bank and places like that?
Yeah, no, that was one of the first places that we went to. We're fortunate here that we've got 50-cent fares. So being able to go around anywhere really on public transport.
They always used to have free ferries in the middle of the city.
Yep,
Do they still
yep.
have the City Hopper, I think it was called?
So the City Hopper, I think, is part of the 50-cent network.
Alright.
I think it's called the City. Actually, you're confusing me because it's either the City Hopper or the City Cat. One of them is free, one of them
So
isn't.
I remember the cats you had to pay on, but the City
There you
Hoppers
go.
were
You
the
know more about it than I do.
That's all right. Yeah, so in the times that you have been exploring in Australia, have there been any times where you felt completely out of your depths or, oh my goodness, that was a bad decision?
Absolutely. Towing a caravan that weighs best part of 3 ton, I've definitely felt out of my depth. Do you know what the
Well,
worst time was actually when we visited a place quite close to Brisbane? I think it's called Kookaburra Park. And it
yes.
was a lot hillier as a campsite than I was expecting. And I guess the giveaway would have been the fact that we were camping in the top paddock or the top field. But I remember it was one of the first few times that I towed something so significant. It wasn't with our newest caravan, it was with one that was slightly lighter. Like I said, we've gone through the whole evolution. But I remember looking up at the hill where the top paddock was, and there was a significant incline. And we just had probably about 2 or 3 weeks worth of really, really bad rain. And I
No.
didn't really trust myself to be able to get up there. I thought the last thing I want before we even set up camp is people to be laughing at me while my whole setup just slides back down the hill. But yeah, I guess that is one of the joys of towing a caravan.
Indeed, indeed, yes. But I mean, that was just a perception thing. It didn't actually happen.
Oh, I reckon we had a couple of wheel spins. It was pretty close.
All right, I'll pay that for you. Goodness. And places that you thought, this is so amazing, I have to come back here.
Do you know what? That's not something that I normally think about. I'm definitely one of these people that I view the world as such a large place with so little time that I don't really. It has to be really good for me to want to go back there.
We're in accord there because I think that there's people say to me, well, you've traveled all your life. What's your favorite place? And I say, wherever I am at the time.
Do you know what? I've slightly changed my viewpoint on that. I still believe that there's not many places, if any, that I can think off the top of my head that I would personally like to travel back to. But I have to look at it, as a dad of two young people, that I have to look at it through their lens. So where would I like them to go back to that I have visited? I'm doing it for them. Or even from the fact that we may have visited some places where my eldest was, she's never going to remember it. I
Yes.
sometimes wonder if she can remember what she had for breakfast, but now as an older person, she has, the chance to build those core memories. So I reckon she loves. We took her snorkeling
Lovely.
while we were in Yeppoon, and we went to, is it Great Keppel Island? So
Yes.
technically that was her first experience of the reef. She'll never forget it because she had a wobbly tooth, and I obviously stuck the snorkel in her mouth, and one of the teeth was donated to the Great Barrier Reef. We didn't get
What
it
does
back.
a tooth fairy do?
Yeah, well, the tooth fairy has a specific rule that if you don't have a tooth, you don't get any money. But
Traumatic.
she doesn't get a lot anyway. There's only $2. But I would definitely take her back up to the Great Barrier Reef in Cairns, whatever bits are kind of left of it, because I was fortunate enough to go there when I was about 10 years old, and
Wow.
I'll always remember our trip there from the UK. And that's probably one of the reasons why we ended up in Australia. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why we're also going on a cruise up there as well. So to be able to take her up there, experience the reef, get that snorkeling bug, maybe she'll want to do some diving when she's older.
Yes.
That's one of the places here that I definitely want to revisit.
And so have you been traveling in Europe a lot? Living close in England, you usually can just have a flight and you're there at some destination.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess now living here and it being so far away, it's one of the things that we do regret. We didn't necessarily travel enough, but we were very fortunate. And my wife, she also loves to travel. So we always used to at least make one city break a year, as well as obviously the other holidays, just to escape the monotony of the grey that is the UK. So yeah, we've got one of those scratchy maps. I still haven't put it up in my house. The maps that every time you visit a different country, you get to scratch it and then you can see all the different places that you visited. So, yeah, I would love to be able to scratch as much of that off as possible.
That's something I hadn't heard about, a scratchy map. I shall have to find out.
Yeah, it's got, how when you buy scratchy cards, like
Yes, I know that.
in the newsagents, it's the same kind of thing.
Oh, fun.
Especially when you're doing the European ones because they're so tiny. You've got to be really careful with. You
That's
can't just
right.
go. That's why I want to go to China because you could just scratch off a big bit. My wife said to us when we got married, she said, "Where should we go on our honeymoon?" And I kept saying to her, "Don't go to one of these little island countries. I know you just want to go to the beach, but it's not very good for the scratchy map." And she said, "Well, where should we go then?" I said, "Russia." And she was like, "No, I'm not going to Russia, honey." I said, "But it's pretty big though, isn't it?"
So where did you go?
Well, we both wanted to go we went to America, and she's a massive Disney fan, obviously being
Oh, wow, yes.
yeah, a millennial woman. So she grew up on Ariel and Beauty and the Beast. So she wanted to go to Disneyland and to take me to Florida. I'd never been to Florida to the big theme parks. She's still a big kid, so she wanted to take me around there. I said, that's not really where I want to go, but I'll go for you. In America, I hadn't been. And the one place that I wanted to go in America was Vegas. So I went to Vegas with her, obviously. And we went there for about a week and we went to Disneyland for a week around the parks. And
So I share with you that in 2012, the first ever World Social Media Conference was held in San Diego.
Mhm.
My daughter is very into social media, and we weren't very into it then. And I said to her, "Well, look, I've just heard this advertised on the radio as I was driving along. I think we must look into it." And she and her partner, now husband, they flew. We all flew together, and I said, "Hey, I'm such an old lady. I need a break before we get there." So we spent a week in Hawaii first
Wow.
because you got to break things up, and
That's
then
not a bad trade.
it was terrific, and then we also went to Vegas. I didn't like Vegas much, but, I can't stand crowds. I found America too many people.
I preferred the older part of Vegas rather than the newer part of the Strip. Don't get me wrong, some of the hotels when you go there on the Strip, you just look around and they're huge and they're full of so many things. But I just loved Fremont Street and the concept of all of the old stuff. I've got I'm a bit of a CSI fan, but the specifically Las Vegas one.
I love
So not that I went round and looked at a load of crime scenes. I just kind of remembered a lot of the different things from that.
Yes, yes, and my, son-in-law participated in a Tough Mudder contest just outside of Vegas, and that was huge fun to go and watch him and cheer him on with that.
Did you go to the Grand Canyon as well while you were there?
No, we didn't.
Oh, that's a good trip. We treated ourselves, obviously being a honeymoon, and we did one of those helicopter rides into the Grand Canyon,
Oh,
which I
beautiful.
would definitely recommend. Most people recommend doing it either sunrise and sunset. The cheaper one is to do it sunrise. But being as two British people there, they offer you a champagne breakfast.
Lovely.
And as soon as we landed, all of the other tourists were off very, very quickly to go and take their photos uninterrupted in the middle of the Grand Canyon. And my wife looked at me and I looked at her and we looked at the person who just landed who was doing the breakfast and we went, "Where's our champagne?" So we just sat there drinking champagne while all these other people are trying to do
Let's
these
face it,
different
you've seen
do
it
these
from
different
oh,
poses. Yeah, we're also the type of people that when we go traveling and they call your gate to go and board the
yes,
plane, there are people in this world who want to get up straight away and stand in the queue. Those were the people that were trying to queue up to get their photos of the Grand Canyon, and then there's people like us who will sit there and wait, sat down until there is no
relax,
queue. Yeah,
relax, do
and
it.
and when the no queue has a nice seat and a bit of breakfast and champagne, the British in me comes out, and that's how I make my choice.
I love it. My one of my late partner, he died in Wales, and my daughter came out to help
Sorry
me
to
pack
hear that.
up, and life and death, it all happens. So we went to Italy, to France through the tunnel, is it called? The train that
Yeah,
goes.
Channel Tunnel. My dad used to work on that.
All right, we went through there and we went to France and then Italy, Switzerland. And when we were in Italy, we went on a cruise down the Amalfi Coast and Turkey and Greece and Santorini. It was lovely. And the only reason we did this because when my partner was dying, he was dying of advanced melanoma. He made me promise on his deathbed that we would do this trip that we had planned for the next April. And so she said she's flying out anyway, so you might as well go now. And I tell you what, it's very good for getting rid of grief when you're so distracted by all this beauty and exciting things around. And we drove ourselves. We bought a second-hand car in England, and when we, I thought I'd donate it to a charity,
Mhm.
but it was too big a car. It was a Volvo, and they said in Rome we can't drive a car that big. So we
No.
we paid €50 to get it scrapped, and actually it was cheaper to do that than to hire a car.
I've got a few friends that, for a stag do, they did like what they did on, I think it was on Top Gear, where they bought a very cheap secondhand car each, and they
Oh, wow.
drove that through as many different countries just to see if they could or if the car would break down. I think they all kind of made it. They went to Germany because they wanted to take them on the Nürburgring just to see if
Yes,
they could do it, but they definitely weren't as fast as some of the other cars that were on it.
I don't think so. And I mean, it's all these memories, they're fabulous, yeah. And the other interesting thing is he made me promise to find another man, and I said, "Don't be ridiculous. I'm an old lady now, don't go looking for other men." Anyway, he made me do it, and I found my partner of now, and I've sailed through the South Pacific Islands of living the best life and have a soulmate again. It's lovely. So
Wonderful.
I don't want people to think just because you lose a partner and you think you're old, that's not the end of life. You can keep going and have lots of fun.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I hope you don't have to have those sort of choices yet. You look
No.
far too young for that. So, what are your plans for the next sort of few getaways, the next school holidays? Because it's school holidays now, isn't it? Well, it is here in Tasmania.
Not quite. We've just finished ours, so we've gone
Oh,
back to school. I'd definitely love to still be on holiday.
yeah.
I think I want to create like a traditional camping trip over the winter here.
Yes.
I've got some ideas of some of the better places that we like to go to. Obviously, having 2 young girls, we need to pick the places that they can at least be entertained. I'm quite happy with the ones where there's nothing and, they have to go off and play in a field and use their imagination. But
Yes.
sometimes it's just a little bit easier if there's some more things for them to be able to do. So I think we'll kind of we went to somewhere last year, and I think this year we'll keep going back, and that's gonna be our traditional camping trip. Obviously, being in Queensland, the best time to camp is not the summer. We're going on a cruise. That's the one that leaves from Brisbane and goes up the east coast up to Cairns and then back. We're doing that in the September holidays with my parents.
Oh, that's
I mean, they've visited some of those places, but they've never done it really by cruise, and I think they got the bug a few years ago, so now they just it's not their preferred way of traveling necessarily, but my mum always she has a massive travel bug. Perhaps that's where I've got it from. So she wants to sit everywhere. And I've always said to her, one of the easiest ways to do it, mum, is probably via a cruise.
yes.
So we're going there in September, and then we haven't really got many plans after that. We were supposed to this Easter have my wife's family come, so the in-laws, but because of the conflict in the Middle East, they
Yes.
weren't able to come. So I think they're planning to rebook over the summer break. So, be able to spend a good 6 weeks with us, possibly more.
That's
And I'm not entirely sure where they want to go. So there will definitely be some smaller trips planned. There is the prospect of us going to New Zealand because I think they have a family friend there, and that actually is one of the places that I wouldn't mind going back to. I proposed to my wife in Queenstown. We might not
oh,
necessarily go to there, but it's such is one of the probably the few countries where I genuinely have my breath taken away by how beautiful it is. And the girls haven't been, so I don't mind taking them.
so I have traveled by flying there and by road all through the South Island and by car in the North Island, but we sailed there and spent 6 months in the South Island, the North
Mhm.
Island, when we first started sailing and living aboard. And it's magnificent. And I went back to Lake Taupo in August last year.
Okay.
Um, but we flew then, yeah. It was just fabulous. I love New Zealand. And I would go back, but not necessarily the same places. One thing that's interesting, because you were saying about your in laws and your parents, they like cruising. We sailed up and down the east coast of Australia. And then when COVID came, we had to stop
Mhm.
traveling. And we lent an old car that we kept in Brisbane when we were there, stayed at my daughter's place. So during COVID, all the foreign sailors were stuck in Australia. And I belong to a Facebook page called Women Who Sail Australia. And I put a post on there to say, if anybody's stuck that's got children on their yacht that can't travel, let me know. And we have a bomb of a car. You can borrow, just pay the fuel and stuff. It's not a problem. And a family with 3 kids who had been actually living aboard for 11 years on their yacht sailing from England. They borrowed it. And then after COVID stopped, they gave it back to us. So they had it for about 18 months. And
Mhm.
they were now allowed to sail on to finish their travels and go back to England. And so we said, okay, well, we'll come and fetch it at Bundaberg where they were. And so we flew up and took a tilt train, which was rather fun. If you ever want to have an experience, a tilt train is fun to go along from Brisbane North. And we collected the boat, the car, and it was such fun to drive down and look in the sea where we'd sailed and dropped anchor and
Mhm.
gone into the bays and the marinas and that. It was just such a different experience to see it from the land and then from the sea. And it was just such a strange thing, especially I think it's called the Rainbow Beach. I think I saw you've been there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Rainbow Beach.
Rainbow Beach. So we'd sail past there often, but to actually go there and walk on it was rather fun.
Yeah, that's I don't mind Rainbow Beach.
Mm.
It's one of the just the whole area really. I've never gone much further. I still haven't been to Fraser Island to Gari yet. I guess Rainbow Beach is as far as we've gone, but yeah.
Have you been to Townsville?
No.
So Townsville, you can get a ferry to go to Magnetic Island, and I mean,
Yep.
little kids would love that. They've got apparently over 800 koalas there that were
Wow.
somebody can't remember the exact history, but apparently somebody brought them there and they just bred up and they've got lots there. But it's just a fabulous place to go, and even for a day trip if you didn't want to stay there. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was one of our plans when we had these grand ideas of being able to take the caravan north, and we just only got as far as Rockhampton.
Mm.
Yeah, it's definitely on the list. We'll get up there one day.
Yeah. Oh, no. I never stop traveling. From my accent, you can hear I'm from Africa. I grew up in Zimbabwe. And when I was 17, I started traveling. I went and was a safari guide, a photographic safari guide in Botswana. Lived in Namibia for years, all over Southern Africa and England, Australia. And if we fly on Sunday to go up to Queensland for 2 weeks.
Wonderful.
And then in July, we go over the mainland with our camper van and go and explore for a couple of months. Life
Nice.
is not to be lived in one place, I don't believe.
No, I mean, it's nice. Home is a nice place. I'm very much a homebody kind of person. I like
Yes.
to have somewhere to go back to, but it doesn't take long for me to want to go on to visit somewhere. And my
Absolutely.
wife is itching to go abroad again, so
Nice. So how long before you get your citizenship sorted out?
we actually had our confirmation of the citizenship grant this week. We're just waiting for our ceremony date now.
Oh, excellent. That's lovely. Well, definitely welcome to Australia.
Thank you.
I'm sure you'll have fun. Have you got any tips for wannabe, would-be travelers who want to travel with two young kids with a camper van?
This is probably gonna be one that goes against most people's thoughts, and
I like that.
don't don't give them tablets and screens to look at as a thing. I
I
mean, I mean, they both have them, but don't have them as the go-to when you need them to be entertained. I would much rather, in the short term, have to put up with the whinging and that I'm bored in the back seat so that they grow up in the same way that I grew up and my wife grew up, in the sense of you have to use your imagination and your creativity and make your own entertainment.
I
I think kids nowadays, the go-to of trying to entertain them, that's not my job. I'm your parent. I feed you and make sure you don't die. But how you're entertained, and that's your job. So it's okay to be bored. You're going to spend
yes.
most of your life bored, but there's a little bit of joy sometimes in being bored and what you can do with that and how you can change that for your mindset. So don't give them the tablets. There's a time and a place for it, but as a
Absolutely.
default setting, nah, mate, just be bored. You'll be okay. You won't die.
Love it, I totally love it. I, have a five-year-old granddaughter, and when she was 3, her friends that were older than her had given so many toys and dolls' houses and things, and when I went to visit her, I taught her how you can create a whole community out of egg carton people
Yeah.
and make it into a boat, and we drove the boat around, we had a playground, and when I left after the weekend, I said to my daughter, "Look, I'm not obsessed, just throw it away in the recycling, it doesn't matter."
Hmm.
And I think it probably lasted about 3 years before it disintegrated.
Wow.
So I was quite pleased, her imagination's good.
No, I definitely rate that. I don't mind kids with toys
Oh,
and things. You
absolutely.
know, that's part of the creativity anyway. It's quite nice
Yes,
to see them
indeed.
when they play with them and they sit there talking to them and stuff like that. But a bit like the tablets, I'm sometimes a bit against having too much plastic crap that, they don't need. So I do appreciate when you have to make something out of a bit more of a natural material,
Yes,
wood or whatever. Yeah, that's cool.
it was fun. It's been a pleasure chatting to you, Ross.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.